Welcome, dear listener, to Stories for Sleep, a place where the past unfolds gently, like parchment unrolling in candlelight. Tonight, we'll step into the golden calm of medieval Andalusia, into the courtyards of Cordoba, where sunlight glints. Off-painted tiles and the scent of orange blossom lingers in the morning air. We'll walk softly through the early world of a boy named Musa ibn Maimon, known to the Latin world as Maimonides. And if you enjoy drifting through these ancient pathways, don't forget to subscribe and let us know where and when you listen. Now, let's begin. The morning in Cordoba is not rushed. It never is. Before the sun crests fully over the horizon, before the market awakes in full clamor, there is a hush of velvet kind of stillness that lies between the calls of early roosters and the rustle of garden leaves. You might imagine the sound of a wooden door creaking open, revealing a tiled courtyard washed in soft blue shadow. The walls are warm with yesterday's sun, and a small fountain gurgles quietly in the center, sending ripples. Across the shallow water, where one or two stray petals have fallen. This is not the Cordoba of dusty roads and camel caravans. That image belongs to someone else's imagination. This Cordoba is meticulous, intricate, full of private beauty. Every tile, every carved wooden lintel, every lattice-screened window speaks of order, geometry, and the pursuit of something higher than chaos. It is a city of scholars and craftsmen, where Jewish, Christian, and Muslim quarters curve around one another like threads in an embroidered cushion distinct, yet sewn together. Inside one of the homes in the Jewish quarter, a boy is already awake. Perhaps he's 10, or perhaps a little older. He's the kind of child who seems older than his years. His name is Musa. Later, the world will call him many things: physician, philosopher, rabbi, but now he is simply a boy listening to the rhythm of morning, the brushing of his father's quill against parchment, the faint murmur of prayer, the low clink of a clay cup set on a table. His father, Maimon, is a scholar and a judge. He rises early, not because he must, but because the quiet hours before the world makes its demands are the most precious to him. He's writing something today, perhaps a legal opinion, or a letter to a fellow scholar in Lucena. His pen moves. Slowly, the words must be right. And in this house, words matter. Musa watches from the doorway. He's not supposed to be awake yet, but children have a way of appearing exactly where curiosity draws them. He doesn't speak, he just watches, quietly soaking it all in. The ink, the scroll, the steady concentration of his father. This is what memory is made of. Not the grand moments, but the quiet ones that settle into the bones. Elsewhere in the house, someone is grinding spices. You can almost smell it. Coriander, cinnamon, a hint of dried rose petals. The kitchen is a modest affair, but well kept. Chickpeas soak in a ceramic bowl, and bread dough rises slowly under a damp cloth. There will be lentils today, and perhaps fish, depending on what the market brings. The Maimon household is not poor, but neither is it lavish. They are respected a family of learned men, but in Cordoba, respect does not always mean riches. It means books. It means letters. It means being able to read aloud in multiple languages, and to understand the music of grammar as much as the melody of a lute. The neighborhood stirs. A donkey passes slowly in the street, led by a boy not much older than Musa. Behind him, a woman tosses water across the cobbles to settle the dust, and shutters creak open one by one. From a distant minaret, the call to prayer rises, not loud, not insistent, but part of the soundscape, woven into the morning like a low hum. Not everyone in the city answers the call, but all hear it and all respect it. Later, Musa will walk with his father to the synagogue. They'll pass the bookseller's stalls, where shelves of Arabic, Hebrew, and even Latin texts are laid out like precious cloth. Some days they'll linger, discussing fine points of law or logic. Other days, they'll walk in silence, minds already turned inward. In the synagogue, the boy will sit cross-legged on the floor, trying to follow the debates. He doesn't yet understand all the words, but he understands the feeling, the respectful tension of scholars testing each other's ideas, like goldsmiths testing the purity of a coin. It is serious, it is gentle, it is to him beautiful. But for now, it is still early. The boy returns to the courtyard and sits beside the fountain. He dips his fingers into the cool water, tracing tiny circles. A bird hops along the rim and sips. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings, probably from the palace gardens or one of the larger estates. The city, once capital of the Umayyad Caliphate, still remembers its greatness. It remembers the libraries that held hundreds of thousands of volumes, the universities, the surgeons, the astronomers, the poets who wrote with ink made of saffron and soot. Those days have shifted slightly, like sunlight moving across a wall, but their echo is still strong, and in this echo a boy grows, quietly, steadily, in a house lined with books and warmed by quiet routine, surrounded by ideas, bound by memory, and slowly, without knowing it yet, stepping into a life that will one day ripple far beyond this tiled courtyard. But for now, all is calm. The morning is slow, and Cordoba does not rush, and neither should we. Cordoba's streets are not arranged with the logic of squares and grids. They meander. They fold into themselves like parchment, long read and reread, edges softened by time. You do not walk them in haste. You follow their rhythm. If you're lucky, they'll take you somewhere. If you're very lucky, they'll take you nowhere in particular. Today, Musa walks them with his father, hand tucked in hand, feet brushing against smooth cobbles worn by centuries of footsteps. Muslim, Christian, Jewish, traders, soldiers, poets, weavers. The sun is still low enough to cast long golden shadows, and the smell of morning bread lingers at every corner. The city is alive in that quiet, expectant way before the heat begins to press down. Windows are still shuttered against the light, and cats stretch languidly beneath fig trees. A butcher sharpens his knife in the shade, not urgently, but as though the steel itself had asked for attention. Musa walks slowly, not because his legs are tired, but because he's paying attention. There's a potter shop he likes to pause. Near the same craftsman always sits at the wheel, shaping soft clay into perfect, symmetrical bowls. Musa never interrupts. He just watches, memorizing the way fingers coax form out of formlessness. His father nods to neighbors. There is no rush in his greeting, no fluster in his speech. He speaks the way one writes, with care, with pauses, with purpose. He speaks in Arabic, in Hebrew, sometimes in the dialects that hover in the streets, like shadows that have learned how to talk. Cordoba is nothing if not fluent in many tongues. They pass the apothecary next to small shop that smells of ground bark and vinegar and mint. Shelves are lined with tiny drawers, each labeled in graceful script. Musa presses his nose against the wooden frame. He dreams of these drawers sometimes, what lies inside, what combinations might be made, what ailments cured. At night, he asks questions. Why does this plant heal and that one harm? His father always answers with a parable first, then the science. Not far from the apothecary is the library. Not the great caliphal library, which by now is but a memory of grandeur, but one of the many smaller ones, private, quiet, full of scrolls, copied by hand and eyes grown weary under lamplight. Here, scholars gather. They debate not to win, but to understand more deeply. Here, too, Musa listens more than he speaks. His father introduces him to an elder man with long fingers stained by ink. They exchange the kinds of greetings that begin with blessings, then unfold into layered compliments. May your wisdom be weightier than your years. May your books be filled only with truth. May your nights be lit by insight. Musa is handed a scroll, not a sacred one his age would not yet allow for such, but a medical treatise written in Arabic by a philosopher from the East. He cannot read it fluently yet, but he holds it as if it were a treasure chest sealed with invisible locks. His fingers trace the calligraphy slowly. The rest of the day unwinds itself like a slow stream. They do not return home by the same streets. They take the long way through the market. The zoko hums quietly, not yet crowded. There are stalls selling dyed wool and carved bone combs, baits sticky with syrup, and jugs of oil sealed with wax. Musa's father stops to speak with a bookseller. They discuss a copy of Galen's texts translated into Arabic, annotated in Hebrew. The bookseller apologizes, it's been claimed already. Musa listens anyway, learning the names. Galen, Aristotle, Ibn Sina. He does not know yet that one day his own name will sit beside theirs. At a nearby stall, a man sells colored glass beads. Musa is drawn to the way they catch the light. He touches a green one, cool, smooth, perfect. The seller smiles and lets him keep it. Musa tucks it into his sleeve, and later, when no one's watching, he'll roll it between his fingers like a talisman. By the time they reach the synagogue again, the sun is high. It is not a grand building, but it is dignified. Inside, the scent is one of parchment, wax, and the faintest trace of sandalwood. The floor is clean, and the benches are worn from years of use, polished, not by design, but by prayer. Musa sits beside his father, his hands still sticky from dried figs they'd shared along the way. He listens. Today's discussion is on the laws of intention, how a single action can be right or wrong, depending on what the heart meant. It is more than legalism. It is philosophy in disguise. His father's voice joins the others, not louder, but clearer. Musa does not catch every word, but he understands enough to feel the weight of thought, the shape of learning. This, he realizes, is what matters here, not just what is taught, but how minds unfold together in conversation, like the petals of a flower opening to the morning. When the sun begins to descend again, father and son return home. The air is thicker now, the heat curling lazily in the alleyways. Musa's sleeves are rolled up, and the green bead sits snug in his pocket. His feet are tired, but his mind is restless. He has questions stacked behind his eyes, like books waiting to be opened. Dinner is lentils, warm bread, and olives. Simple, sustaining. Afterwards, Musa sits near the fountain again. A same bird returns. The same ripples bloom in the shallow basin. Overhead, the stars begin to appear one by one, as if summoned by the thoughts drifting through the courtyard. His mother lights the lamp. His father returns to his writing. And Musa? Musa closes his eyes and listens to the sound of ink on parchment. And the city beyond breathing, ancient, patient. And Cordoba, as always, does not rush. Evening comes softly in Cordoba. It doesn't arrive all at once, but creeps over the tiled rooftops like a silk veil pulled gently across the sky. Lamps flicker to life one by one, their flames dancing behind pierced metal lanterns. In the Jewish quarter, the courtyards glow with candlelight and hushed voices. Supper has been eaten. The water jars are refilled, and a small boy leans over an open scroll, his face lit by the golden hush of oil light. Musa studies, not because he's told to, but because the world is written in ink, and he's decided he'd like to read all of it. He reads slowly, carefully, tracing each letter with his finger when he must. Some of the texts are in Hebrew, others in Arabic. Occasionally, he finds bits of Aramaic, or even Greek transliterated into Arabic script. In this house, such things are not strange. They are ordinary. Just as one might learn to knead bread, Musa learns to decode meaning. His father joins him, rolling out a parchment beside his son's. He does not instruct, not exactly. He simply reads aloud, pausing to explain when Musa's brow furrows. Together, they unravel questions like knots in a thread. Tonight's topic is medicine. Specifically, a passage from the writings of Hippocrates, interpreted through the lens of a scholar from the East. Musa listens closely, chin resting in his poem. There is something about the logic of the body, the way each part serves a purpose, the way illness can be read like a hidden message that appeals to him. His father speaks of humors blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, not with superstition, but with thoughtful curiosity. They believed, he says, that balance was everything. And perhaps they were not wrong. Musa nods, absorbing. Not just the facts, but the way his father thinks around them, how he holds an idea up to the light and turns it slowly. Outside, the city is quieter now. A few carts roll home through the dark, and a night watchman's bell chimes once, twice, then disappears into stillness. From a nearby window, a lullaby drifts in a woman's voice, low and steady, like a thread tying the day to its end. Musa continues reading long after most children would have fallen asleep. The world of his scroll is wide and strange wounds that can be healed with honey, fevers soothed by herbs from distant mountains. He wonders how many lives could be made better just by knowing. Eventually, his mother calls softly from the doorway. Her tone is kind but firm. The scrolls must rest now, as must he. Reluctantly, Musa closes the parchment, his small fingers smoothing the edge. He stands, stretches, and kisses his father's hand in farewell. Later, in bed, sleep does not come. Quickly, his mind hums with questions. He thinks of the potter's wheel, of beads of green glass, of organs and herbs, and the mystery of pain. He does not yet understand that he is learning how to heal, not just bodies, but arguments, communities, fractured ideas. For now, he sleeps, and in the quiet of the Cordoba night, the city dreams alongside him of stars and books and things not yet written. The following morning arrives with pale gold sunlight and the distant rustle of market cloth. It is cooler than the day before. A light breeze stirs the fig leaves, and the scent of jasmine returns familiar, grounding. You might think of it as the city's way of saying, begin again. Musa wakes early. He dresses without hurry, fingers fastening the ties of his tunic, feet slipping into soft sandals. Breakfast is simple: bread drizzled with oil, a few salted almonds, water from a clay jug that keeps it cool without ice. No one speaks much in the morning. Words are saved, like ink, for what matters. Today, Musa is allowed to accompany his father to a private study hall, one not open to all. It belongs to a friend of the family, a wealthy patron with a vast collection of manuscripts. It is the kind of place where scrolls rest in wooden niches, where windows are small and high to protect parchment from light. A room where knowledge is preserved as if it were something sacred. The man greets them warmly, a scholar with a long beard and kind eyes. He offers them tea spiced with cinnamon and mint, and they sit cross-legged on cushions near a low table, piled with texts. The room smells of cedar, dust, and old stories. Musa is handed a new scroll. It is a commentary on logic by Al-Farabi, written in clear Arabic script with marginal notes in Hebrew. Musa recognizes the name his father has spoken of him often. The second teacher, he said once, after Aristotle. Musa doesn't know if he agrees with that order, but he reads anyway. Here, in this room, the world makes a different kind of sense. There are no shouts, no market cries, no scurrying footsteps. Only the sound of pages being turned, the low hum of discussion, the occasional scratch of a quill, a gentle rhythm. Like the city breathing through its scholars. Musa's father debates softly with the host, The two men speaking in turns. They move from logic to medicine to theology without signaling a change, because in their minds, the world is a single structure, not a set of separate rooms. What begins as a question about Aristotle ends in a meditation on mercy. Musa listens, half understanding, wholly engaged. Hours pass like clouds. Tea is refilled. The scroll changes hands. A servant brings in dried figs and soft cheese wrapped in vine leaves. Musa eats without taking his eyes from the text. He's learned not to rush the words. Sometimes the meaning comes only after the third reading. Sometimes not even then. By midday, they step outside for a short walk in the shade. The sun is high now, but the streets are quiet. Cordoba rests at noon, the way a wise person closes their eyes. Not in sleep, but in thought. They pass a water wheel, turning slowly on the river. Musa watches its paddles lift and fall, each motion precise, consistent. His father explains the engineering behind it, how the water is lifted, how gravity does its quiet work. The boy nods. The mechanics are elegant, yes. But what he likes best is the sound, the slow creak, the splash, the rhythm of something ancient still doing its job. They return home before the heat becomes too sharp. Inside the house, the shutters are half closed, and the fountain murmurs its same old song. Musa sets the new scroll aside and begins copying one of his father's texts instead carefully, one line at a time, learning not just the ideas, but the discipline behind them. And so the day folds itself inward, not with grand events, not with adventure or spectacle, but with layers of learning, like sediment forming stone, like ink layering on vellum. Outside, Cordoba continues to breathe. The potter's wheel turns. The apothecary labels another jar. A donkey rests in the shade. And a small boy, surrounded by scrolls and silence, slowly becomes something more than curious. He becomes a student of the world. Cordoba never truly sleeps. Even at rest, it hums like a great living scroll, slowly unrolling itself through time. And in the spaces between dawn and dusk, when the heat eases and the light softens, that hum becomes a low, constant rhythm. You can hear it in the tread of feet on worn stone, in the creak of wooden shutters opening onto balconies that spill over with geraniums and mint, in the murmur of neighbors trading quiet greetings over shared walls. It is in these hours that Musa walks the streets with his father. They don't walk with purpose. Not always. Sometimes the purpose is simply to watch, to observe, to let the city speak in its many dialects of commerce, of faith, of craft, of longing. Musa learns that cities have moods, just like people, and Cordoba, at this hour, is patient. The Jewish quarter wins in loops and angles, whitewashed walls, rising close and high, casting cool shadows on the narrow passageways. The doors are plain, but their knockers gleam, some shaped like hands, some shaped like lions. The iron is smooth from years of use, like thoughts worn soft from too much. Turning, they pass the baker's shop, and Musa inhales the warm scent of bread crisp crusts and airy middles. The loaves are lined in baskets, still steaming faintly. The baker waves with flour-dusted fingers, already preparing the dough for tomorrow. A little farther down, the cobbler is seated on a low stool outside his doorway, leather scraps and tools arranged like a ritual before him. He nods to Musa's father, then gestures toward a pair of sandals he's just finished. They speak briefly, easily, in a blend of Arabic and Ladino. There is no rush. Cordoba does not rush. Musa trails his fingers along a sun-warmed wall. He listens to the hiss of oil in a pan, to the hiss of water poured onto thirsty herbs, to snippets of prayer recited softly in Hebrew, in Arabic, in Latin, in love. In this part of the world, faith is not something you keep in a temple. It is something that slips into your sleeves, your shoes, the folds of your daily life. They pause at a small square where merchants are beginning to close their stalls. The seller of ink nods and lifts a small bottle-deep blue, almost black, a color that Musa finds himself drawn to. He wonders how many pages it could fill, how many thoughts could be trapped inside it, like beetles under glass. Across the square, a scholar sits beneath an olive tree, scroll in hand. His lips move as he reads silently, the words shaping themselves in air. Musa recognizes the look, the deep inwardness, the turning of one's mind like a wheel slowly catching. "Shall we greet him?" his father asks gently. Musa only nods. The man is friendly, his beard streaked with gray, his eyes bright behind heavy lids. They speak for a while, about medicine, about texts, about a new manuscript arriving soon from the East. Musa listens, head slightly tilted. He likes the way knowledge passes between adults, not as something guarded, but as something shared, like bread. As they prepare to leave, the scholar looks at Musa and smiles. "Study everything," he says, "but do not forget to sleep." A good reminder. Because even in a city of books, the body has limits. Even the mind must rest. The Guadalquivir flows wide and quiet, cutting through Cordoba like a ribbon of thought. On one bank, the bustling city. On the other, olive groves, orchards, and the slow hush of farmland. Crossing the great stone bridge is not just a change of location, it is a change of rhythm. The pulse slows. The air tastes different. Time seems to stretch its limbs and exhale. It is here that Musa sometimes comes with his family, away from the tight coils of the quarter, away from the echo of bells and footsteps on stone. They pack dates and cheese, a skin of cool water, and perhaps a scroll or two tucked carefully into cloth, and they walk. The bridge is old, Ramang in origin, its stones worn smooth by centuries of passage. Donkeys clop across it. Traders lead. Carts piled with hay or pottery. Musicians sit in shaded alcoves, plucking stringed instruments that sound like distant wind. And always, the water flows beneath constant, whispering, always headed somewhere else. Musa looks down into its green depths. He thinks of questions that don't yet have answers. About how the body holds sorrow. About how the stars affect the tides. About whether music can heal the sick. He doesn't know yet that these will become the questions of his adult life. Right now, they are just ripples in a river too wide to cross in a day. The grove they walk toward is filled with fig trees and silence. Birds chatter in the branches. Bees hum around bursts of lavender. His mother lays a cloth on the ground, and they sit sometimes speaking, sometimes not. There is no need to fill every minute with words. Musa opens a book. Not a grand philosophical text this time, a simple collection of poems. Lines that speak of olive trees, of longing, of peace. He reads them aloud, softly. His sister listens, head tilted like a bird. His father closes his eyes and leans against the trunk of a tree. This, too, is learning. Not every lesson comes with ink and argument. Some come with stillness, with breathing, with being present. Later, when the sun shifts and shadows lengthen, they return, slowly, reluctantly. The city waits on the far bank, its roofs glowing in the late light, its towers catching gold along their edges. The muezzin will soon call from the minaret. A bell will chime in the old Roman quarter. And in one small house not far from the synagogue, a boy will return to his desk. Because though he has learned much today, there is always more. Cordoba, after all, is a city that gives, but only to those who ask patiently. And Musa? He is learning how to ask. Let us step quietly into Musa's home. The walls are thick, whitewashed, and cool to the touch built to keep the burning sun at bay during Cordoba's long, bright afternoons. The house itself is built around a central courtyard, as many are. In Andalusia, with a fountain at the center that murmurs like a small and thoughtful voice. Jasmine and myrtle grow in terracotta pots, their scent curling up toward the balconies like a slow, perfumed sigh. The rooms surrounding the courtyard serve many purposes: sleeping, studying, cooking, praying, but none of them are entirely closed off. Light spills easily from one space into the next. So does conversation. So do the sounds of turning pages, or spoons stirring lentil soup, or a sibling humming tunelessly while brushing her hair. It is not a grand home, but it is a thinking home. A kind of home where words are weighed before they're spoken, where books are never just decoration, where every shelf is slightly askew under the weight of accumulated knowledge. Musa's father, Dayan Maimon, is not wealthy in the way merchants are wealthy. His wealth lies in ink and respect. He serves the community as a rabbi and a judge, giving counsel, settling disputes, interpreting law. He keeps careful records in Hebrew and Arabic. He reads aloud at night, sometimes legal commentary, sometimes poetry, sometimes the sayings of ancient sages with names that feel more like echoes than men. And Musa listens. Always he listens. He learns the laws of Shabbat, the rhythm of prayer, the distinctions between ritual purity and moral clarity. But he also learns how to hold a contradiction gently, without crushing it. That's sometimes a law. Must bend to serve compassion. That interpretation is not weakness, but strength. His mother, more reserved, but no less sharp, moves through the household like quiet clockwork. She tends to the cooking, the stitching, the garden. But Musa knows she notices everything. When he misplaces a manuscript, it is often she who finds it. When he fumbles through his recitations, it is often she who corrects him with a glance, not a rebuke. In the evening, the family gathers in the courtyard. The fountain continues to murmur. The lanterns glow with oil and amber glass. And someone, usually his father, reads aloud. Sometimes Musa reads too. His voice is still unsteady, but his mind runs ahead of his mouth. The texts come alive for him, not as relics, but as puzzles, invitations, maps. And sometimes, when the night is particularly still, Musa lies on his back and watches the stars turn above the courtyard. He traces constellations he knows and invents names for those he doesn't. He thinks about how small he is, how vast the world must be, and how much of it might fit between 2 pages if the right words could be found. Cordoba is not one voice. It is a chorus, a layered harmony of languages, customs, and beliefs, woven tightly together like the threads of an Andalusian tapestry. Arabic is the voice of the court, the market, the sciences. Hebrew is the voice of study, of liturgy, of ancient inheritance. Latin still lingers in the mouths of Christian scholars, and Romance tongues coil around the alleys and squares in softer, less formal tones. Musa grows up with all of them. He speaks Hebrew at home, learns Arabic at school, hears Latin phrases at the library, and the street gives him everything else: snippets, gestures, borrowed expressions from neighbors and friends. This polyphony doesn't confuse him. It delights him. Every language, he feels, holds a slightly different mirror to the world. And by learning to speak many tongues, he can learn to see the same truth from different angles. A scholar, after all, is not a man who knows the answers. He is a man who asks better and better questions. And in Cordoba, questions abound. Why do we suffer? What is the nature of the soul? How should rulers govern? What is the best way to treat a fever? Some of these questions belong to the synagogue, others to the court, still others to the hammam, where physicians gather in the steam to argue about digestion and the humors. And Musa listens, not always at the center, but always near enough to catch the rhythm. In the Jewish quarter, he sees a life defined by law and memory. In the Muslim quarter, he sees a city ruled by reason, geometry, and poetic metaphor. And though these communities are distinct, their boundaries are not walls, they are doorways. He watches his father greet a Muslim jurist with warm deference. He sees Christian scribes copying Arabic texts into Latin script for a monastery library. He hears a blind man recite a poem by an Arab philosopher who quotes a Jewish prophet translated. By a Greek, Cordoba is a library, not a fortress, and Musa? He is already turning the pages. Imagine a morning in the heart of Cordoba. The sun rising slowly over the Guadalquivir, its pale light stretching across rooftops and catching the dew on terracotta tiles. The streets are just beginning to stir, vendors rolling up the shutters. On their stalls, bakers coaxing warmth into their ovens, and the first call to prayer already fading into the air like smoke. In the Jewish quarter, a quiet hum begins to swell. The day ahead holds its usual rhythm study, chores, errands, but for young Musa, there is something sacred in the ordinary. He walks the narrow alleys with a satchel slung over one shoulder. Inside, scraps of parchment, a reed pen, a small inkwell corked tightly, and a folded passage of Aristotle that he has copied by hand, not because anyone told him to, but because he finds the logic soothing. Past the tiled walls of the synagogue, he nods to the spice seller arranging his cinnamon and cloves. Past the tailor's shop, where two apprentices argue cheerfully over the proper shape of a sleeve. The city is slowly becoming itself, stretching awake with the rustle of fabric, the rhythm of footsteps, the clink of coin. And Musa feels himself, part of it not an observer, but a quiet participant in a choreography older than he can name. His destination today is a small, sun-dappled room tucked behind a modest courtyard, where a teacher waits with a stack of books and a kind but precise gaze. This teacher is neither rabbi nor imam, but a scholar of Greek texts, a translator who believes wisdom should not be confined by language. Today, they study logic, the quiet architecture of thought, premises and conclusions, the scaffolding that holds arguments together. As they read, the teacher pauses often not to explain, but to ask questions. Why does Aristotle say this? What if he's wrong? What happens if you reverse the order? Musa's brow furrows, not in frustration, but in fascination. Each answer seems to open more questions. And this, too, feels like a kind of faith. By midday, the lesson ends. The heat climbs. The city seems to exhale. Musa steps back into the alleyways, blinking against the brightness. He walks slowly, savoring the scent of bread rising from clay ovens and the sweet citrus breath of orange. Trees swaying over courtyard walls. Back home, his mother hands him a fig and a gentle reminder to rest his eyes. His father, reading by the window, glances up to nod, and the pages of the day flutter closed with the ease of a practiced hand. There is a secret Cordoba that does not speak aloud, a city of gardens behind walls, of shadows cooled by vines, of knowledge that travels not in declarations, but in murmurs. And young Musa, curious and patient, learns to listen. Not all his education comes from books. Some of it comes from the hammam, where warm air thickens with steam and stories. Some of it comes from the apothecary's shop, where jars of crushed bark and dried flowers whisper ancient remedies into the air. And some of it comes from quiet conversations shared on garden benches, under fig trees, heavy with promise. There is an old man who tends a private orchard near the city's edge. Nobody quite remembers when he arrived in Cordoba, only that he speaks very little and knows a great deal. Musa meets him by accident, chasing a runaway sheet of parchment. Caught in the breeze, the man returns the parchment with a chuckle and, seeing the boy's curious eyes, offers him a ripe plum and a seat on a stone bench. They sit often after that. They talk little, but with care. The old man teaches Musa about plants, how to graft, how to heal a split stem, how to know when the roots are sick. He says that every leaf has its temperament, and every blossom its purpose. Musa begins to see the garden as more than beauty. It is a system, a pattern, a living philosophy. He realizes, too, that knowledge is not always loud, not always wrapped in parchment or argument. Sometimes it is slow, leafy, and silent. Sometimes it requires only stillness and time. At home, Musa begins sketching the shapes of leaves in the margins of his notes. He reads Galen with more attention. He asks his father for books on medicine, not just the illnesses, but the cures. He wants to understand what keeps the body whole, what brings balance. Evenings pass in that slow, honey-colored glow peculiar to Andalusian twilight. The city cools, the courtyards darken, the stars return, punctual as ever, and Musa lies awake, wondering about the delicate machinery of the body, the invisible cause of fever, the exact way in which breath moves through a man asleep. He does not know it yet, but these questions will guide him for decades. For now, they are only seeds. And Cordoba gently is teaching him how to plant. As the seasons shift, Cordoba reveals itself not through grand declarations, but through 1,000 small consistencies. The rustle of date palms in winter winds, the hush of fountains in shaded patios, the creak of carts as they pass under archways unchanged for generations. For Musa, now in his mid-teens, life has settled into a quiet, unhurried rhythm. Each day carries a gentle structure, one that seems to cradle both his curiosity and his calm. Mornings are for scripture, not only the Torah, but also the commentaries, the long conversations of minds separated by centuries, yet joined on the page. The room is quiet, but never silent. The scratching of quills, the soft murmur of voices, the gentle breath of thought moving through parchment. Later in the day, Musa reads more widely mathematics, philosophy, medicine. His father, who has begun to trust the depth of his son's interest, occasionally slides a new text across the table with no comment beyond a faint smile. Sometimes it's a tract from Hippocrates. Sometimes it's a letter from a Jewish scholar. In Cairo, always it is something that invites a long stare out the window and a scribbled margin full of question marks. And then, of course, there is the synagogue. Not only a place of worship, but a place of community, learning, and debate. The wooden beams overhead catch the sunlight just so, dust dancing in the still air. Here, Musa listens more than he speaks. The elders argue theology and law with a kind of graceful stubbornness, their tones warm even in disagreement. Musa admires this, how deeply one can care, and yet remain calm. Outside the synagogue, life continues in its usual rhythms. Children chase chickens through narrow lanes. Merchants call out their wares, each more confident than the last. The stone streets hold the warmth of the afternoon sun long after dusk falls. And always, the faint scent of almonds and olive oil drifts through the air, as if the city itself is preparing dinner. In the quiet hours after sundown, Musa reads by the flicker of an oil lamp. The world shrinks to a circle of golden light and the rustle of pages. These are his favorite hours, the world half asleep and thought free to wander. Sometimes he forgets to eat. Sometimes his mother brings him bread and murmurs that even great thinkers need to chew now and then. And he smiles, not because she's wrong, but because she's always right. It begins with a cough, not Musa's, a neighbor's. A small girl with a pale face and tired eyes. The cough rattles like dry leaves in a jar. Her mother, anxious and hopeful, asks if Musa's father might know something. He does, of course, but he's out that day. And so Musa walks across the courtyard with a satchel of notes and a heart full of caution. He is no physician, not yet. But he listens carefully. He asks gentle questions. He touches her wrist to count the pulse, her forehead to sense the heat. Then he returns home and searches through scrolls and fragments. His father's shelves are a maze of Greek and Arabic, of ink and insight. He finds what he needs, or thinks he does. He returns the next day with the simple preparation herbs boiled gently, strained, and sweetened with honey. Nothing dramatic, nothing dangerous, just something to soothe, to ease. A week later, the girl is better. And Musa, for all his logic and reason, feels a tiny flame of wonder take root. Medicine, he begins to understand, is not only science, it is also listening. It is watching. It is noticing the way someone looks, the color beneath their eyes, the way they describe pain with their hands. It is a kind of quiet translation of body into words, of symptoms into meaning, of suffering into care. He begins shadowing his father more closely. He sees patients who whisper, patients who cry, patients who pretend nothing is wrong until they nearly collapse. He learns that illness is not always visible, and that healing is not always immediate. Sometimes it's as simple as letting someone feel heard. There is beauty in this, not the kind that draws crowds, but the kind that sits at the edges of life, quiet and essential. And slowly, Musa starts to imagine a future where his hands might carry that same quiet strength, where he might help, gently and precisely, in a world full of needs. He is still a student, still young, still fumbling sometimes with the right words or forgetting which herb helps what, but the path has opened. And Cordoba, with all its layers and fragrances and footsteps, seems to nod its approval. The cough fades, the pages turn, and the stars over Andalusia keep time with the beat of a new kind of purpose. Step quietly now, dear listener, into the libraries of Cordoba, not one, but many. This was not a city with just a single great hall of scrolls. Cordoba, in its golden centuries, was a constellation of knowledge. Private libraries nestled in, merchant homes, scribes' workshops that hummed like beehives, religious schools where students bent low over delicate calligraphy, the black ink drying in graceful lines. And in the midst of it all, young Musa. He walks the streets with a satchel that's never quite closed, always overstuffed with scrolls and notes, and tucked in bits of parchment like the feathers of an absent-minded bird. The books of Cordoba are his companions now, not just Jewish texts, though those remain his roots and his anchor. He's long since crossed boundaries. Arabic translations of Aristotle sit beside Talmudic commentary. A dusty treatise on geometry shares space with Galen's thoughts on the humors, philosophy, astronomy, language, law. They jostle in his mind like well-fed cats on a warm windowsill, occasionally bickering, but mostly content to coexist. Cordoba, after all, encouraged this. The city is not only a place of faith, but of inquiry, where Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike engage in scholarship, not always in agreement, not always in peace, but often in parallel, and sometimes in dialogue. The cafes serve mint tea and arguments. The bathhouses echo with debates whispered between steam and stone. A walk through the market might yield both a ripe fig and a quote from Plato. And so Musa breathes all this in. He learns not only what is written, but how to listen between the lines, how to notice what a scholar omits, how to feel the weight of a hesitation. He begins to understand that books, like people, have personalities. Some are warm, some are cold. Some contradict themselves in the margins. One text especially captures his imagination, an Arabic translation of Aristotle's Metaphysics. The words swim before his eyes at first, slippery and elusive. But then, slowly, they begin to cohere. He is entranced by the idea that reason and revelation are not enemies, that faith and intellect might not cancel each other out, but rather shape each other like twin hands molding clay. He reads and rereads. He dreams of logic trees. He begins writing small reflections, nothing grand, just quiet meditations in the corners of his notebooks. Ideas whispered more than proclaimed. The scribes of Cordoba, with their careful hands and endless patience, sometimes smile at him as he lingers too long at their stalls. They know this kind of hunger, the kind that ink alone can feed. And sometimes, just sometimes, one of them slips him a page from a new translation, still warm from the press of the stylus. A small gesture, a kind of silent blessing. It is here, in the breath between scrolls, that Musa bin Maimon begins to dream not just of knowing the world, but of contributing to it. Imagine now the garden again. It is late afternoon. The sun has passed its peak and rests lazily on the edge of the rooftops. The olive tree casts a soft, dappled shade onto the tiled floor. And under that shade, two men sit, one young, one older, though not yet old, father and son, Musa and Maimon. There is no lecture today, no scriptural commentary, no philosophical text laid out between them. Just a bowl of figs, a jug of cool water, and a quiet companionship of shared air. I saw you reading Al-Farabi again, his father says after a while, not accusing, not even curious, just observing. Musa nods. He makes Aristotle easier. Like a window instead of a wall, Maimon chuckles. A window can still let in cold wind. They sit in silence a little longer. The leaves rustle above. Somewhere beyond the wall, a donkey brays with. Great drama, life continues. You're beginning to sound like a philosopher yourself, Maimon adds, tone lightly teasing. Should I worry you'll abandon medicine for metaphysics? Musa considers this. No, he says. But I think the best physicians know both. His father smiles, then really smiles. Not the small daily smile of politeness or approval, but the kind that starts in the chest and warms the eyes. You'll be better than me, he says quietly. The words hang between them, not heavy, not boastful, just true in their own time. Musa doesn't reply. He reaches for a fig instead, its skin warm from the sun and soft to the touch. He bites into it slowly, sweet, like honey wrapped in earth. Maimon leans back and closes his eyes. When you were born, he murmurs, I wondered if you would ever be quiet. You cried like the world was ending. But look at you now whispering. To books, arguing with Aristotle. They both laugh, softly, like men at peace. This moment simple, grounded, full of love unspoken, is not in any scroll. It will not be recorded in the histories. No philosopher will cite it. No library will preserve it. But perhaps, somewhere deep in Musa's memory, it will remain. A fig's sweetness, his father's smile, the smell of olive leaves in the dusk. And perhaps years from now, when the world is larger and harsher and more complex, he will close his eyes and find his way back to this garden, to this quiet, to this love. In a quiet corner of Cordoba's Jewish quarter, behind a low arched doorway with iron hinges smoothed by 1,000 hands, is a modest but bustling room. This is the apothecary. Here the shelves are heavy with little earthen jars, each labeled. In Hebrew, Arabic, and Latin, the air is thick with the scent of dried herbs, cinnamon bark, sage, crushed myrrh. There's rosemary tied in bundles, its bristles sharp and resinous, and rose petals lying in a wooden tray like fading memories. Every corner hums softly with the work of medicine, of observation, of care. This is where Musa begins to train not just his mind, but his hands. He comes to the apothecary in the early mornings before study, or in the soft gold hours of the late afternoon. His teacher here is a family friend, a Jewish physician with calloused fingers and a sharp mind who believes firmly that knowledge begins with the senses. Not theory, not books, but touch, smell, sight. You cannot treat the body, a man says, if you do not love it first. It's a strange statement, and Musa doesn't quite understand it at first, but he listens anyway. Watches, learns. He learns to grind herbs by hand, feeling the texture change beneath the mortar, the scent rising with each turn. He mixes ointments and infusions. He learns the quiet alchemy of care. But he also learns to observe patience. A boy with a cough. That never goes away. An elderly woman whose joints ache when the rain comes. A merchant with sudden fainting spells, whose pulse flutters like a frightened bird. Musa kneels, listens, looks. He watches the physician press a hand to a forehead, examine a tongue, question a diet, check the color of the urine, always with gentleness, always with curiosity. There is no single answer, no one diagnosis, only patterns, possibilities, and the patience to listen. Medicine in Cordoba at this time is not a narrow field. It is a tapestry of knowledge, Greek, Roman, Persian, Arab, Jewish, all stitched together by years of careful translation and cautious innovation. One might read Galen in the morning, Al-Razi at midday, and Maimon ben Joseph by evening, and perhaps, after dinner, scribble a few thoughts of one's own. Musa is not yet a physician, but he is a student of the body and of suffering, and gradually he begins to see what his father meant long ago under the olive tree. That knowledge must serve, that the intellect, no matter how fine, must bend to the needs of the human being. That truth, to be worthy, must heal. So he writes, in quiet moments between visits and readings, the physician should not treat the disease, but the patient. Just a sentence, a seed. But already it begins to grow. By now, Musa's days are full. Overflowing, really. There is no proper division between his life and his learning. They are one and the same. Study happens everywhere. In the bathhouse, in the market, under trees, by candlelight, while walking home from synagogue, while stirring a pot of lentils. The city is his textbook, its people his glossary, its wind a reminder of time's steady flow. But late at night, when the rest of the house has gone to sleep, Musa stays up. A small oil lamp burns low on his writing table, the flame casting long shadows over parchment. This is the hour of translation. Tonight, it is a medical text. Tomorrow, it may be a philosophical one. Arabic to Hebrew, Hebrew to Arabic, occasionally Greek through intermediaries. Each sentence demands his full attention, not just literal meaning, but tone, intent, rhythm, the soul of the sentence. This is not easy work. Language is slippery, like a stream that looks shallow but hides great depth. A word in Arabic may hold 3 different concepts in Hebrew. A turn of phrase in Greek may vanish entirely when moved across the alphabet. And yet, Musa persists. Because, for him, translation is not simply about language. It is about access, about allowing a Jewish child in Egypt or a Muslim physician in Fez to read what would otherwise be closed to them, about preserving knowledge and making it portable. There are moments of frustration, of course, pages ruined by a wrong turn of thought, whole passages that feel like puzzles with no key. He sometimes dozes at his desk, cheek against ink-stained parchment. But there are also moments of quiet triumph, when a difficult metaphor finds its echo, when a single sentence, once tangled and opaque, suddenly unfurls with clarity, like a silk ribbon unspooling. He writes slowly, carefully, his handwriting neat, though not ornate. He favors simplicity, precision. He avoids flourish, even when tempted. These texts are not for show. They are for learning, for life. And in these quiet hours, when the house is silent and the stars blink above Cordoba's tiled roofs, Musa is. Not just translating, he is building bridges. He is creating a future where minds can meet across faith, across language, across time, even if they never meet in person, even if they never know his name. Imagine Cordoba just before sunrise. The streets are damp with the breath of the night. Stones shine faintly under the weight of dew. A sleepy mule clops past with its cart full of cabbages and quince, and a baker opens his shutters to release the first sigh of warm bread into the quiet. It's market day, but not yet market hour. This is the hush before the chorus. And here comes Musa, wrapped in a modest cloak, his sandals still damp from morning ablutions. He walks slowly, deliberately, not because he is old, but because he is thinking. He has been pondering a passage from Aristotle, something about the difference between potential and actuality. It seemed perfectly clear last night, but now, with the smells of fennel and fish oil curling through the streets, it all feels rather more muddled. So he walks and listens. A vendor is arranging figs into tight pyramids, gently coaxing them into shape like a mother fixing a child's curls. Another, sharpening a knife, is mumbling a prayer under his breath. A boy chases a chicken. A woman haggles over onions as if her life depends on it. And here, in this tangle of voices and smells, something clicks for Musa. This, he thinks, is philosophy too. Not just the dry parsing of abstract categories, but the lived reality of choice, need, and consequence. The grocer is making decisions. The buyer is exercising judgment. Even the boy chasing the chicken is a study in persistence, frustration, and hope. The market is a mirror of how people prioritize, value, trade how they live, how they suffer, and what they seek to avoid suffering. In the worn hands of a spice merchant, Musa sees something as profound as in any book of logic. He sees endurance. He sees memory. He sees moral reasoning shaped not by theory, but by generations of need. He buys a few dates, exchanges greetings in Arabic and then Hebrew, and offers a coin to a beggar sitting by a cracked well. The man blesses him in both tongues. Musa bows his head. Later, at his desk, the passage from Aristotle seems clearer, or perhaps less important. He has seen it enacted in a way that no commentary could explain. And he writes, simply, there is no such thing as pure thought. All wisdom is grounded in living, a soft truth, but a steady one. As the sun climbs higher, Cordoba stretches fully awake. The markets bloom into noise. The river sparkles with trade barges. Minarets call out. Church bells answer. Laundry flutters from balconies like flags of 100 forgotten kingdoms. And, tucked between these rhythms, Musa finds his favorite place, the library that has no walls. Not a single library, really, but a mosaic of libraries. A scattering of knowledge that spills out into homes, synagogues, mosques, and private salons. Cordoba is a city of readers, of scribes, of memory. There is the great public library, of course once stocked with over 400,000 volumes during its golden age. But just as important are the smaller rooms. The bookseller shop where you can browse translations and commentaries for the price of a smile and a little time. The calligrapher's studio where students gather not only to write, but to debate punctuation. The rabbi's modest study where scrolls are kept not behind locked cases, but on open shelves, inviting hands and conversation. Knowledge in Cordoba is not sealed, it circulates. Sometimes it's shared through formal lessons, seated cross-legged beneath a teacher's steady gaze. Other times it's passed casually, with a loaf of bread or during a walk by the river. Someone recites a line of poetry, and someone else replies with the next, a memory passed, a fragment preserved. Musa moves through these spaces like a bee, between flowers, not hurried but purposeful, gathering, comparing, questioning. One afternoon, he sits with a Muslim astronomer who's deciphering Persian star maps. Another evening, he debates geometry with a Christian scholar who once studied. In Toledo, always there is the undercurrent of curiosity and the unspoken agreement that no one tradition owns truth entirely, that wisdom, like light, refracts through many windows. This environment will shape Musa's mind in ways even he cannot yet imagine. He will come to believe deeply in harmony, not the bland sameness of forced unity, but the richer harmony of respectful difference, a mosaic, not a mirror. Years later, in exile, in Cairo, in heat and grief, he will still remember these Cordoban days as the soil in which his thoughts first truly grew, not because of a single teacher or a single text, but because of the city itself, the community of seekers, the quiet, persistent belief that questions are not dangerous, that questions are home. The sun, heavy with late afternoon gold, leans gently across the rooftops of Cordoba. It filters through latticework and lemon trees, casting quiet patterns on clay walls and cobbled courtyards. Here, in the family home of young Musa, time takes. On a different rhythm, the door is modest. The walls are whitewashed and clean. In the courtyard, a fig tree droops softly in the heat, its branches stooping with the season's fruit. And inside, beyond the hum of the street, there is study. Always study. Musa's father, Maimon, is a rabbi of gentle conviction. Not loud in authority, but deep in thought. His beard is streaked with the first gray threads of wisdom, and his hands are stained with ink. He does not so much teach Musa as he breathes scholarship in his presence books, stacked like furniture, questions drifting like incense through every room. There are scrolls in Hebrew, yes, but also in Arabic, in Aramaic, in Judeo-Arabic, and even a few in Greek, wrapped like old treasure maps in cloth and mystery. Maimon's library is not grand in scale, but it is vast in spirit. The two often sit together in the quietest part of the day, when the bread is cooled and the birds fall into lazy silence. Sometimes they debate scripture. Other times they trace the arc of a philosophical idea as it moves across centuries, from Plato to Plotinus, from Avicenna to Al-Farabi. And always, always they return to the Torah, like a boat touching back at its dock. And yet this is no ivory tower. This home is alive. There is laughter from the kitchen, and sometimes arguments, and sometimes the scent of lentils drifting in to soften a difficult idea. Musa's mother and siblings are never far reminding him that even the life of the mind must sit at the same table as hunger, illness, love, and chores. There is a harmony here, a grounding. It is in this house that Musa learns not just to read, but to interpret, not just to memorize, but to live by what he studies. And perhaps most important of all, he learns what it means to listen, because his father does not demand obedience. He invites dialogue. He leaves space in his teachings, like white margins, on a page for Musa to fill with his own understanding. That, too, is philosophy. Some nights, Cordoba wraps itself in a silence so deep, even the river seems to hold its breath. It's in those hours long after the last lanterns flicker out, after the neighbors' soft conversations taper into dreams, that Musa's mind continues wandering. By candlelight, he writes, not letters, not finished essays, but questions, dozens of them, small, careful, patient questions. He writes them down in the margins of books, on scraps of paper folded and tucked into corners, on the backs of letters. His father never mailed. Questions like, can a law be both divine and reasonable? Is there a limit to what can be known through human thought? Do mercy and justice share the same source? He doesn't expect answers. Not immediately. He's learned that the answers often arrive in disguise, sometimes as silence, sometimes as contradiction, sometimes as life itself unfolding in unforeseen directions. And so he leaves them there like seeds, knowing some will sprout in the minds of others long after he is gone. Outside, a nightingale stirs in the fig tree. The stars pulse gently overhead, quiet and ancient. Somewhere, a neighbor coughs, and then there is stillness again. Cordoba, vast and sleeping, holds its scholars like dreams within a dream. And Musa sleeps too, eventually, not because his thoughts are finished, but because they have found their shape for now. A circle of wondering, soft as wool, firm as a question. This is how wisdom grows, not in bursts of brilliance or conquest, but in slow, thoughtful pacing, in humility, in the willingness to pause, to rest, to admit what one does not know. The city breathes, the boy sleeps, the questions wait. The courtyards of Cordoba are not all tiled and perfect. Some stretch into the edges of groves, where olive trees grow thick and sleepy under the Andalusian sky. And it is here, not in grand halls or vaulted libraries, that some of the richest learning takes place. Imagine Musa, still a young man, sitting cross-legged beneath a crooked olive, his sandals cast aside, his knees dusted with soil. Around him, a small circle of companions, Jews, Muslims, perhaps a Christian or two each one, holding a scroll, or a wax tablet, or nothing at all. They are here not for formality, but for thought. Someone reads aloud from Aristotle, then pauses. Another offers a passage from the Koran or the Torah that echoes the same idea. A third counters gently, citing Galen. And then, softly, without contest, but with precision, Musa speaks. He is never the loudest in the circle, but when he speaks, people listen differently. He has a way of folding opposing ideas together, like cloth, not hiding contradiction, but holding it, showing how paradox can be a sign of depth, not error. And still, the olive leaves whisper in the wind, and the dappled light shifts over the pages. Occasionally, a bee stumbles lazily past, unconcerned with eternal truths. There is no certificate awarded at the end of these gatherings, no applause, no final exam. Only the slow, shared transformation that comes from asking better and better questions. It is in these small, dusty meetings that Musa learns the shape of discourse, the quiet discipline of disagreement without disdain, the art of building meaning, not winning arguments. And he will carry this method with him all his life, not only into his writings, but into his judgments, his healing, his prayers. Because wisdom, like an olive tree, takes time. And time in Cordoba still flows like honey in the shade. The markets of Cordoba are not quiet places. They clatter and call. They smell of citrus and cumin, of soap and sheep's wool. And every morning, Musa must pass through them. He walks deliberately, robe brushing stone, sidestepping a delivery. Boy with a basket of eels, a scholar haggling over parchment, a toothless man offering sugared almonds from a tray. This is not where he belongs. Some might think this young student with his ink-stained sleeves and distracted gaze. But Musa disagrees. He sees the market as part of the classroom. Here, he listens to complaints. Not political ones, though. There are those, too, but the deeper, older complaints of the body. My joints grind like old hinges. My daughter coughs when the river rises. Why do my dreams burn like fever? Musa listens. Always listens. And slowly, medicine begins to grow alongside his philosophy. He apprentices under local physicians, Muslim, Jewish, and Christian alike. He watches how they examine, how they prescribe, how they pray. In Andalusia, healing is not a divided science. It is a craft carried by many hands. He begins to keep notes, not only on symptoms, but on herbs, temperaments, climates, food. He reads Galen and Hippocrates. He studies the writings of Al-Razi and Ibn Sina. And still, he returns to the market, again and again, to test these books against real people. Real ailments, real sighs. He learns to blend science with softness, to see illness not only as malfunction, but as imbalance, sometimes physical, sometimes spiritual, sometimes both. And though he is not yet a doctor, he begins to move through the world like one. Gentle, alert, unhurried. A child tugs at his sleeve once and asks, "Why do you always look like you're about to answer a question that hasn't been asked yet?" Musa only smiles. The question itself is a kind of healing. So the market becomes a school, the people his patients. The noises annoying to some are, to him, part of the rhythm of knowledge. And as he walks home each day, with olives in his pouch and thoughts circling his mind like swallows, he is not just a student anymore. He is beginning to become something more. Let us return for a moment, not to the markets, not to the olive groves, but to a smaller, quieter place, somewhere tucked away behind the Maimonides family home. A narrow, cool chamber. No windows, only shelves, books, scrolls, fragments of parchment tied in bundles, a few crumbling with age, others copied by Musa's own careful hand. This is not a library in the way we often imagine it. There are no librarians, no grand domes, no golden chandeliers. There is dust and silence and the sound of pages turning. But this small chamber holds an entire universe. Some nights, after dinner, Musa returns here alone. The rest of the house begins to quiet pots cleaned, lamps dimmed, father humming a half-remembered tune from his youth. And Musa opens a scroll, or 2, or 10. He reads Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, Latin, with effort. He reads poetry and mathematics, law and astronomy. He reads commentaries on commentaries, and the notes in the margins that argue back. And all the while, he builds a library inside his mind, not a perfect one, not linear or categorized, but rich, alive, a living web of ideas. He remembers how Galen described fevers, how Aristotle defined substance, how the Talmud described the shape of heaven. He carries each piece like a thread, waiting for the right moment to weave it in. This mental library becomes his refuge. When the world is loud, he goes inward. When times grow uncertain, and they will, he returns to the steady companionship of these pages. Sometimes, when the moon is high, and the olive trees outside whisper secrets in their sleep, he thinks, perhaps the greatest freedom is not wealth, or safety, or even speech. Perhaps it is simply the ability to think clearly, to remember, to reason, a quiet kind of power, one that no one can confiscate, no matter what banners they fly. So he reads. He reads not to escape the world, but to better understand it. And someday, to help it. And if, in the soft hush of this hidden room, the boy becomes something more, if he begins to shape himself into a philosopher, a physician, a legal scholar, no one sees it happen all at once. It happens like roots growing underground, silent, certain, unstoppable. In Cordoba, letters travel not only across cities, but across worlds. Imagine Musa at his desk. A small oil lamp flickers at his elbow. The light paints soft gold across his notes. Beside him, a reed pen sits, trimmed to the thinnest edge, and the ink is dark made from gallnuts and copper salt, with a scent faintly bitter. He dips the pen and begins to write. Not hurriedly, not casually, each word is chosen. Each letter a gesture of thought made visible. Tonight, he's writing to a cousin in Fez. Tomorrow, perhaps to a scholar in Cairo. Or to someone he's never met, only heard of through footnotes and praise. This is the quiet life of correspondence. There are no social networks here, no glowing screens. But there is a network, a patient, thoughtful, dignified one, made from ink, paper, and time. And through it, ideas move. Musa writes in Hebrew, often. In Arabic script. Sometimes in Judeo-Arabic, a language is fluid and adaptable as the man himself. He asks questions, offers theories, disagrees carefully, like one removing a thorn from cloth. His tone is never boastful, but it is clear. He wants to understand and to be understood, to refine his mind by polishing it against others. And as he folds the parchment and seals it with wax, he knows that it might be weeks or months before he hears back. But still, he writes. This habit, this discipline, is part of the world of knowledge in Al-Andalus. Letters are not distractions here. They are lifelines. They allow scholars to learn from each other without standing in the same room. They allow questions to travel farther than footsteps. And they allow a young man in Cordoba to feel, just for a moment, that his thoughts may matter beyond the city walls. Someday, these letters will evolve into treatises, into towering books, into philosophies that will cross continents and centuries. But for now, they are just small missives, carried by mule or merchant, inked by lamplight, scented with patience. And as Musa extinguishes the lamp and stretches his fingers, the city outside dreams its own slow dreams. A dog barks in the distance. Someone hums an old love song on a rooftop. And inside, a scholar sleeps with ink still drying in his thoughts. Imagine yourself waking slowly in Cordoba at dawn, as the first pale light stretches across narrow streets paved with worn stones. The air carries a hint of earth and jasmine, a softness before the day's bustle. From the distance, the market stirs to life. The quiet hum of vendors setting up wooden stalls, the gentle clatter of pottery being arranged, and the muted calls inviting passers-by to inspect the day's harvest. Here, the rhythm is steady, unhurried, a delicate balance between tradition and necessity. Musa, though often deep in thought, sometimes ventures into this lively scene. He steps through aisles fragrant with spices cumin, coriander, and saffron, all mingling in a warm haze. Basket after basket of ripe figs, pomegranates gleam like tiny suns, and bundles of fresh herbs add bursts of green. He listens to the soft negotiations, not sharp bartering, but a respectful dance. Buyers and sellers nod knowingly, a shared language of trust and routine. Perhaps he pauses by the leatherworker's stall, where supple hides hang in the morning light, or glances toward the baker's ovens, the scent of fresh bread warm and comforting. This market is more than just a place to trade goods. It is where the city breathes, where stories are exchanged with the same ease as silver coins, and where Musa, for a moment, steps away from his scrolls to observe life's simple pulse. It is in this rhythm, the steady movement of daily life, that knowledge and culture grow rooted, unnoticed, yet profound. And as the sun climbs higher, the market fills with the soft murmur of life, continuing unbroken and timeless. Imagine yourself waking slowly in Cordoba at dawn, as the first pale light stretches across narrow streets paved with worn stones. The air carries a hint of earth and jasmine, a softness before the day's bustle. From the distance, the market stirs to life. The quiet hum of vendors setting up wooden stalls, the gentle clatter of pottery being arranged, and the muted calls inviting passers-by to inspect the day's harvest. Here, the rhythm is steady, unhurried, a delicate balance between tradition and necessity. Musa, though often deep in thought, sometimes ventures into this lively scene. He steps through aisles fragrant with spices cumin, coriander, and saffron, all mingling in a warm haze. Basket after basket of ripe figs, pomegranates gleam like tiny suns, and bundles of fresh herbs add bursts of green. He listens to the soft negotiations, not sharp bartering, but a respectful dance. Buyers and sellers nod knowingly, a shared language of trust and routine. Perhaps he pauses by the leatherworker's stall, where supple hides hang in the morning light, or glances toward the baker's ovens, the scent of fresh bread, warm and comforting. This market is more than just a place to trade goods. It is where the city breathes, where stories are exchanged with the same ease as silver coins, and where Musa, for a moment, steps away from his scrolls to observe life's simple pulse. It is in this rhythm, the steady movement of daily life, that knowledge and culture grow rooted, unnoticed, yet profound. And as the sun climbs higher, the market fills with the soft murmur of life, continuing unbroken and timeless. Now, let us step inside the Maimon family home, away from the market's hum. The walls here are warm with the color of sun-baked clay, and the floors carry the soft creak of woven rugs. The air is scented with fresh bread baking and the faintest hint of rosewater from the courtyard garden. Musa's family is his anchor. His father, a respected scholar, moves through the rooms with quiet authority, his voice calm and measured when speaking of law or tradition. His mother, gentle but firm, tends to the household with a careful hand, ensuring that the children's needs are met without fuss. Dinner is a slow, shared affair. Flatbreads pass from hand to hand, olives and cheese arranged simply on a ceramic plate. The conversation weaves between family news, study, and the rhythm of everyday worries, always patient, never hurried. Evenings here are refuge. The flicker of oil lamps casts soft shadows, and the voices lower to a soothing murmur. Stories from the past, prayers whispered softly, and the gentle laughter of children fill the space. In this quiet strength, Musa finds not only comfort, but the foundation upon which his curious mind can safely wander. It is a reminder that knowledge does not bloom in isolation, but within the embrace of those who care. And as night deepens outside, the family gathers near. The fire, a circle unbroken by the passing of days, holding steady through change. Imagine yourself now stepping into Musa's study, a modest room filled with the soft golden light of late afternoon. The walls are lined with shelves bearing leather-bound manuscripts, their spines worn smooth by frequent touch. The scent. Here is a mixture of parchment, beeswax, and the faint aroma of herbs kept in small bundles nearby. A simple wooden desk holds scattered sheets covered with meticulous script, sketches of plants and stars mingling in the margins. Musa sits here, his gaze steady but thoughtful, hands tracing over text copied from ancient sources and his own. Careful annotations. This is a sanctuary for quiet reflection. The room hums with the gentle scratch of quill on paper, a sound both delicate and persistent. Outside, the distant bells of the city mark the passing hours, but here time seems to slow. His work is a conversation across centuries, voices of Greek philosophers, Arab mathematicians, and Jewish sages whispering through the pages. Musa listens patiently, weaving their thoughts into his own growing understanding. Here, there is no rush. Ideas unfold like petals, slowly revealing their shape and meaning. A problem is considered from many angles, each carefully weighed. It is in this steady, gentle labor that Musa shapes his legacy, not with grand gestures, but with patience and humility. And as the light fades from the window, his study fills with the soft glow of a lamp, a quiet beacon for learning that stretches deep into the night. Now imagine a calm courtyard garden, enclosed by high walls covered in climbing jasmine and fig trees. This is where Musa practices one of his great passions, the healing arts. Amidst fragrant herbs, mint, rosemary, lavender, he prepares remedies using recipes passed down through generations and refined by his own careful experiments. The process is slow and attentive. Leaves are crushed with a mortar and pestle, infusions brewed with water drawn from the cool well nearby. Bottles and jars, labeled in neat script, line a wooden table, each holding a promise of relief. Healing here is a gentle art. It requires patience, a listening ear, and a steady hand. Musa treats not just the body, but the mind and spirit, offering comfort as much as cure. Villagers and townsfolk visit quietly, seeking his advice or a soothing balm. The exchange is always respectful, a shared trust and knowledge passed quietly from teacher to pupil, from healer to patient. In this tranquil space, science and compassion meet, grounded in the rhythm of nature and the cycle of seasons. As evening falls, the garden fills with the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a night bird, a peaceful setting where healing and hope quietly flourish. Imagine yourself on a cool, clear night in Cordoba, the city settling into its quiet rhythm as lanterns glow softly along narrow streets. Above, the sky stretches wide and endless, a deep velvet canvas scattered with countless points of light. This is the night sky Musa knows intimately, a tapestry of celestial bodies that has guided travelers, inspired poets, and challenged scholars for centuries. Musa steps onto the rooftop terrace of his home, where a small group of instruments, astrolabes, armillary spheres, and carefully marked charts wait patiently to be consulted. The air is crisp with the scent of night-blooming flowers, and a gentle breeze stirs the pages of a book resting on the wooden table. The stars seem distant, yet intimately close here, their soft twinkle a reminder of mysteries both ancient and eternal. Musa's eyes trace the familiar constellations, Orion's belt, the Pleiades cluster, and the bright eye of Sirius. To him, these aren't just points of light, but a complex puzzle, a celestial clockwork whose mechanics hint at the very order of the universe. His work in astronomy is not hurried. Each observation is a quiet meditation, a patient gathering of data under the gentle gaze of the heavens. He notes the movements of planets, the phases of the moon, and the subtle shifts in the stars' positions, details that require calm attention and steady hands. Often, a soft murmur of poetry escapes his lips, verses praising the beauty and vastness of creation. For Musa, the study of the stars is as much an act of wonder as of science, a chance to connect with something greater, something timeless. Beyond the technicalities, this practice offers a kind of solace, a peaceful ritual amid the bustle of daily life. Each night spent beneath the stars brings clarity, perspective, and a renewed sense of purpose. As dawn's first light softens the horizon, Musa closes his charts and steps down from the terrace, carrying with him the quiet wisdom of the cosmos. Now, picture yourself wandering slowly through one of Cordoba's bustling marketplaces, where the day unfolds with a gentle hum rather than a roar. The marketplace is a tapestry of sights, sounds, and scents, a living mosaic of the cities, diverse cultures and peoples. The narrow streets here are lined with stalls draped in colorful fabrics. Merchants call out softly, offering spices like cinnamon and saffron, vibrant dyes, fresh fruits, and fragrant perfumes. The air is thick with the mingled aromas of citrus, roasted nuts, and blooming flowers. Musa often visits this place, not just as a customer, but as a quiet observer of daily rhythms. He moves among the crowd with a thoughtful gaze, appreciating the subtle interactions between buyers and sellers, the patient barter, and the sharing of news and stories. Here, the languages of the world, Arabic, Hebrew, Latin, and the Romance tongues, blend softly, spoken in tones that rise and fall like a gentle melody. Children weave through the crowd, their laughter a light thread in the marketplace's fabric. The marketplace is not merely a place of commerce, but a center of community life, where ideas and traditions intermingle as easily as goods. It is a place of connection, where Musa might meet scholars exchanging knowledge, or artisans sharing the latest techniques in metalwork or calligraphy. In the midst of this daily flow, Musa's presence is calm yet attentive. He pauses to examine a finely crafted astrolabe or to ask a spice merchant about the origin of a rare herb. These small moments enrich his understanding of the world and its intricate web of influences. The marketplace also reminds him of the delicate balance sustaining Cordoba, a city built on tolerance and exchange, where diversity is a quiet strength rather than a source of conflict. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows over the stalls, the marketplace gradually slows, its sounds mellowing into the soft rhythms of evening. Musa walks home, carrying the gentle pulse of the city with him, a reminder of life's rich tapestry, woven slowly and patiently, thread by thread. Imagine the fading glow of late afternoon as it slips gently through the latticed windows of Musa bin Maimon's study. The soft amber light pools on the smooth wooden desk, where scattered parchments lie next to carefully inked manuscripts and delicate quills. The air is warm, but carries the faint scent of drying herb sage and rosemary gifts from the small garden below. In this quiet sanctuary, Musa immerses himself in the slow, steady rhythm of learning. Here there is no rush, only the patient unfolding of knowledge, like petals opening in the morning sun. The rustle of pages turning is a soothing sound, a whispered conversation between scholar and text. Musa's work spans many disciplines: philosophy, medicine, astronomy, and law, all woven together by a deep desire to understand the world. His hands move deliberately, sketching diagrams of the heavens or copying passages from Greek philosophers whose ideas have traveled across time and language. His gaze is steady but gentle, a reflection of the care he takes with every detail. Mistakes are rare, not because he is infallible, but because each line is considered, each thought measured. This is the art of scholarship, slow, precise, reverent. Outside, the murmur of Cordoba's streets drifts faintly through the open window. The chatter of neighbors, the distant calls of vendors packing up for the day. But inside, the atmosphere is calm, almost sacred. Musa often pauses, leaning back to absorb what he has just written, letting ideas simmer in the quiet air. Sometimes his thoughts wander to the great libraries he's read about, places where knowledge flows like water, continuous and sustaining. In these quiet hours, Musa is both student and teacher, reflecting on what has been passed down and contemplating what might yet be discovered. His mind moves like a gentle stream, flowing slowly but surely toward deeper understanding. The afternoon light softens to twilight, and the first stars begin to shimmer outside. Musa closes his books with a satisfied sigh, his spirit nourished by the day's work. This rhythm of study, unhurried and intentional, is a cornerstone of his life, a steady anchor in the sea of change around him. Now, picture yourself stepping into a cool, shaded courtyard nestled within Musa's home. The walls are high and whitewashed, decorated with geometric tiles that catch the dappled sunlight filtering through olive branches. A small fountain murmurs softly in the center, its water flowing steadily, a gentle lullaby for the afternoon. Here, in this tranquil retreat, Musa often meets with friends and fellow thinkers, scholars, poets, and physicians whose voices weave together in calm, thoughtful conversation. The air carries the subtle scent of jasmine and fresh herbs, mingling with the quiet cadence of spoken words. Imagine sitting on a low bench, cushions soft beneath you, as the group discusses topics ranging from the stars overhead to the nature of the human soul. Each voice is measured and respectful, ideas offered like gifts rather than demands. There is no hurry here, only the gentle unfolding of dialogue. Musa listens attentively, his eyes bright with curiosity. When he speaks, his tone is warm but deliberate, carefully chosen to illuminate without overwhelming. His knowledge is vast, but he shares it with humility, inviting questions and reflection. The conversation often drifts to the texts they cherish: Aristotle, Galen, Plato works that form the foundation of their understanding. They debate interpretations, explore meanings, and sometimes simply marvel at the beauty of a well-crafted phrase. Outside the courtyard, the city hums with life, but within this space, time seems to slow. The fountain's soft splash, the rustle of leaves, and the murmur of voices create a cocoon of calm, a sanctuary for thought. These gatherings are more than intellectual exercises. They are moments of connection, where minds meet in mutual respect and shared wonder. For Musa, they provide a vital balance to solitary study, a reminder that knowledge is alive only when shared. As the afternoon fades into evening, lanterns are lit, casting a warm glow over the courtyard's tiles and faces. The group lingers, savoring the peaceful atmosphere, reluctant to leave this quiet haven of learning and friendship. Imagine waking slowly in a modest yet comfortable room, the soft morning light filtering through thin curtains and casting gentle shadows on smooth stone walls. The air is cool and carries a faint scent of lavender mixed with the earthy aroma of sun-warmed clay from the courtyard below. This is the world where Musa bin Maimon begins another day, a world steeped in routine and rhythm, a slow unfolding of moments, each marked by familiar sounds and sensations. Outside the window, the city of Cordoba stirs, softly footsteps echo on cobbled streets. Merchants arrange their wares beneath awnings, and the distant murmur of prayers rises from mosques and synagogues alike, blending into a tapestry of calm. Coexistence. The city is alive but measured, a place where time moves gently, allowing life to be savored rather than rushed. In Musa's household, the day starts with the careful preparation of simple foods: fresh bread, olives, dates, and fragrant herbal tea. The kitchen is modest but orderly, the pots and utensils arranged with thoughtful care. The sound of water pouring into a basin signals the ritual washing before breakfast, a practice both practical and symbolic, cleansing the body and spirit for the day ahead. Imagine Musa taking his morning meal with quiet gratitude, seated on cushions beside a low table. The taste of fresh figs, slightly sweet and tender, mingles with the bitterness of strong tea. Each bite is deliberate, part of a larger rhythm that shapes his daily existence. After breakfast, Musa steps into his study or sometimes the courtyard garden, where the morning light is soft and inviting. Here he reads, writes, or contemplates the world around him. The walls are lined with shelves holding manuscripts, some ancient, some newly copied with pages worn and edges softened by time and touch. The sounds of nature mingle with distant human voices, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves. Stirred by a gentle breeze, the faint laughter of children playing in the street. These are the steady companions to his thoughts, creating an atmosphere both peaceful and alive. Throughout the day, Musa moves between activities with a calm deliberation. He might examine a patient, discussing symptoms and remedies with patience and care, or meet with fellow scholars in shaded courtyards to exchange ideas and insights. Each task is approached as part of a larger pattern, a balanced weaving of study, service, and reflection. The afternoon brings a slower pace, with time for meditation or quiet rest. Perhaps Musa strolls through the narrow streets of Cordoba, observing the interplay of light and shadow on ancient walls, the vibrant colors of market stalls, or the delicate patterns of tilework that decorate fountains and doorways. As evening falls, the city softens again. Lanterns are lit, casting pools of warm light on pathways and courtyards. The air cools, carrying the scent of jasmine and damp earth. Families gather to share meals and stories, while scholars like Musa may return once more to their books, drawing comfort from the familiar words and the steady presence of knowledge. In this rhythm of daily life marked by simplicity, curiosity, and quiet grace, Musa finds a sanctuary. It is a life that honors the slow unfolding of time, where even the smallest moments are rich with meaning and connection. As the stars begin to twinkle softly above Cordoba's terracotta roofs, imagine yourself sitting beside Musa bin Maimon as he reflects on the nature of knowledge and the legacy he hopes to leave behind. The night air is cool and fragrant, filled with the distant melodies of a lute played by a passing musician, the soft cadence blending seamlessly with the gentle flow of conversation. Musa's thoughts are not rushed, but unfold like a slow river, tracing the journey of wisdom across generations and cultures. He understands that learning is not a possession, but a gift, passed hand to hand, mind to mind, across the ages. Consider the vast libraries Musa has known, their shelves heavy with texts in Arabic, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Each book is a vessel of memory, carrying voices from distant lands and times. To him, these manuscripts are more than ink on parchment. They are bridges connecting the past with the present, keys opening doors to new understanding. His own writings, philosophical treatises, medical texts, legal commentaries, are part of this grand tapestry. Musa approaches his work with humility, aware that he is one link in a chain much longer than himself. His goal is not fame or glory, but clarity, precision, and the quiet hope that his thoughts might one day inspire others. Imagine him sharing stories with his students about the great thinkers who came before Aristotle's reasoned logic, Galen's careful observations of the body, Al-Farabi's poetic explorations of society. He speaks gently, emphasizing the beauty of questioning and the importance of seeking truth with patience and respect. In Cordoba, a city renowned for its vibrant intellectual life, Musa's legacy is already beginning to take root. His work influences not only Jewish scholars, but also Muslims and Christians who gather in forums of learning, demonstrating the power of knowledge to transcend boundaries. Yet Musa remains grounded in the everyday realities of life. He knows that wisdom must be practical as well as profound medicine to heal the body, law to guide society, philosophy to calm the restless mind. As night deepens and the city settles into a hush, Musa's reflections turn inward. He considers the quiet endurance of knowledge, how despite wars, changes in power, and the passage of time, the pursuit of understanding continues steadily. Like the turning of the seasons, this thought offers a gentle comfort, a reminder that while individual lives may fade, the light of learning endures, softly illuminating the path for those who come after. Welcome once again, dear listener, as we gently draw to a close this quiet journey through the life of Musa bin Maimon in the gentle city of Cordoba. Imagine yourself beneath the vast Andalusian sky, where twilight lingers long and the stars gather softly like scattered pearls. Here, in this tranquil moment, we reflect on the rhythm of a life lived at the crossroads of knowledge, faith, and enduring curiosity. Musa's story, woven through the quiet streets and fragrant gardens of Cordoba, is not just a tale of a man, but of a world where ideas blossomed in the sun-dappled courtyards of libraries, where the scent of jasmine mingled with the ink and parchment of manuscripts, and where cultures met in a dance of respectful exchange. As night deepens and the city's lamps cast their warm, golden glow, think of Musa seated by a low table, a modest lamp flickering beside him. The soft scratch of his pen on parchment continues late into the evening, not from urgency, but from a calm devotion to clarity and understanding. His writings, philosophical, medical, and legal, are the fruit of a lifelong dedication to learning, carefully shaped with patience and insight. Imagine how Musa, like the quiet river flowing through Cordoba's gardens, carried forward the wisdom of generations before him, and in turn, passed it on gently to those who would follow. His legacy is not merely in words, but in the enduring spirit of inquiry and balance that underpinned his approach to life. In his world, knowledge was a lantern in the darkness, a guide through uncertainty, and a balm for restless minds. Yet, it was always tempered with humility, the understanding that no one person holds all the answers, and that the pursuit of wisdom is a journey without end. Now, picture the peaceful streets of Cordoba as the city sleeps. The distant call of a night bird, the rustling of olive trees stirred by a gentle breeze, the soft murmur of the river, These form the lullaby that carries us towards rest. In this quiet, there is a sense of timelessness, a reminder that while the centuries pass and empires rise and fall, the human thirst for knowledge remains constant, a steady flame flickering through the ages. Musa's life invites us to slow down, to appreciate the rhythm of our own days, to find comfort in the simple acts of reading, listening, and reflecting. It encourages us to embrace the beauty of learning not as a hurried race to a destination, but as a gentle unfolding where each moment holds its own quiet value. And so, dear listener, as you drift softly towards sleep, imagine yourself walking once more through the shaded alleys and sunlit courtyards of medieval Cordoba. Hear again the distant voices of scholars, the rustle of pages turned with care, the murmur of prayers spoken in peace. Let the calm of this place and time settle within you like a warm embrace. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history on Stories for Sleep. If you enjoyed wandering through these ancient pathways with us, don't forget to subscribe and let us know where and when you listen, whether beneath cozy blankets or under the early morning sky. Your quiet presence is a gentle gift, quietly treasured. May your dreams be as soft and enduring as the wisdom we have shared tonight. Good night, dear listener.